Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue, I am Eric. Intamin is one of the best roller coaster manufacturers out there, with tons of world-class roller coasters, and today, I am ranking the best ones that I've ridden. Before we get to the ranking, please subscribe to the channel so you know when new content comes out. There's a lot more on the way. Now, I do want to point out, I've not been on every single Intamin roller coaster, so there are plenty of great ones that will not be on here. There's only one outside of the US, so things like Toro and Expedition G-Force won't be mentioned. And then there are some in the US that are also great that I've not been on before. Also, keep in mind, there are so many great Intamins that there are going to be some very surprising picks on here. So beware of that. Let's start from number 10, Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This is definitely the number 10 spot out of the 10 on here. There's a pretty big jump from 10 to 9 for me, but Cheetah Hunt is a great ride. I enjoy the Windcatcher Tower, it's solid in forces, there are airtime moments I enjoy, intense moments I enjoy, the launches are fairly powerful, the ride is great in presentation, and it's a long, enjoyable experience. Not a whole lot else to say about it, as I don't think it's quite as fun or intense as the top 9. And those top 9, number 9 is Thunder Dolphin at Tokyo Dome in Japan. Apart from, by far, the best name of any roller coaster of all time, Thunder Dolphin is a strong hypercoaster. The first drop is incredible. And following that, you have a lot of cool near-miss elements with buildings. Weaving through buildings at a mall and a Ferris wheel, that's something you don't do very often. So I enjoy that part of the ride. I also think it's quite forceful, has good moments of airtime, and it's not one that I go in depth on with different elements and all, because its layout isn't necessarily the craziest, but it is just such a fun ride, and its location really makes it stand out. Number 8 is Intimidator 305. Okay, I know some are triggered. This is still probably near my top 20 roller coasters ever. But there are a few other Intamins that I just think are more enjoyable for me. I do like Intimidator 305. It is intense. There are moments where you might get a little bit of airtime and all. The first drop is strong, and the ride is great in pretty much every aspect it tries to be. But it's not one I enjoy as much because some have forces that I just prefer. I like having more airtime on a ride, and the intensity on I-305, while draining, is not as sustained as a few others on this list. So while it is still a strong ride, I don't think it is quite the best Intamin, even though many others probably would think that way. Number 7, even worse, El Toro. I know this is an even worse pick, but honestly, El Toro just wasn't quite as good as other Intamins for me. I do like the ride a lot. The first drop and first ejector hill are probably two of the best airtime moments of any roller coaster. And there are plenty of others following that are excellent. I enjoy the intensity of the ride. It is a long ride. There's plenty to love here. I will say, the rides are inconsistent in terms of roughness. Roughness doesn't bother me on a ton of roller coasters, but unfortunately, some of my rides just had very weird sensations that kinda actually felt like getting punched in the gut. A place where I don't normally feel a rattle. But I say the best rides in El Toro are smooth, and the drop is unbelievable, and it's a great ride, but I just think there are 6 others I prefer more by Intamin, even though El Toro is still my favorite wooden coaster I've ever ridden. Number 6 is Top Thrill Dragster. Top Thrill Dragster is maybe a bit of a one-trick pony. It's a short ride, and currently it is not operating, but it has the launch, which is one of the top 2 roller coaster moments I've ever experienced. That launch is just top-notch. Speed and the smoothness going across the track so quickly, 420 feet in the air, the dive back down, it's an intense and amazing ride. Number 5 is Kingda Ka. I really didn't want to talk too much about Dragster because these are kind of right next to each other. It's pretty much a tie between Dragster and Kingda Ka. Several much prefer Dragster. I'm honestly really surprised by this. No one talks about Kingda Ka anymore. and I know having it above El Toro is a very surprising pick, but I do actually have a video where I talk about that. But to kind of summarize, King Ka is more intense than Dragster. A little bumpy, I guess, but it didn't take away from the ride, but instead made it even more crazy. The ride is a bit longer. You might get a little floater on that hill coming back, even though you're much more focused on the speed and getting pushed into your seat, so you don't really notice. But with the launch being literally the other one of the top two with Dragster, and having some elements better than Dragster, I thought it deserved the number 5 spot. The restraints don't bother me, the ride is smooth enough, and the roughness adds to the intensity rather than making it a bumpier or a less enjoyable ride, so it earned a top 5 spot. And I'm probably one of very few people who do roller coasters mostly in a park to put King Ka that high on any list. Number 4 is Maverick. For a while, this was my favorite launch coaster. It's just near perfect for what it is. If you're not a huge fan of intensity, certainly this one's not for you. But the first drop is definitely one that makes your stomach drop with it. The turns are sharp and crazy. The inversions are amazing. I love the Stengel dives. The tunnel launch is the highlight for me. So much power, long, a quick turn right out of the tunnel, and if you do it at night, that's just a whole other experience. Tunnel launch at night is one of my favorite things to do at Cedar Point, period. Maverick also has a little nice theming around it that kind of adds to the atmosphere, and overall, Maverick is just a near perfect roller coaster, held back only by the fact that sometimes at the end of the ride, because of how intense it is, the restraints will be pushing down on my legs a bit. But you know what? The best rides on Maverick, that's not an issue, and the ride itself is amazing. Number 3, Superman the Ride. Another very surprising pick, I know, but I love this ride. I know the restraints are not the best, but they didn't bother me too much on the actual ride. I feel like restraints only really hurt before and after a ride truly begins, if they do hurt at all. So the ride itself, I was not bothered by. And besides the restraints, this ride is actually perfect. You have the drop, the airtime, the location, the quick moments of theming, the intensity, the length, everything about this ride is just the best hypercoaster ever. Well, except for the RMC hypercoasters, but we're not going to talk about that here. I've not done Sky Rush yet, so keep in mind that will not be on this list. But if Sky Rush is anything like Superman the Ride, I imagine it'll rank pretty high in the future, and Superman the Ride itself is such an amazing roller coaster, and though a controversial pick, my favorite roller coaster at Six Flags New England. I love the ride, but it's not quite top 2. Number 2 is VelociCoaster. Of course this one had to make the top 2. And for it to be rides like Maverick, El Toro, Intimidator 305, Top Thrill Dragster, King Ka, it's an amazing roller coaster. There's really nothing wrong with it. There are minor things that could slightly be improved to make it a roller coaster that appeals to me more personally, but for what it is, don't really need to add or change anything. You have a powerful second launch, great moments of airtime, sustained hang time at parts, phenomenal pacing throughout the ride, the Mosasaurus roll being one of my favorite inversions ever. And overall, there's just nothing to dislike about this ride, unless you don't love thrills. But I do, so it's a ride that really stands out as one of the best anywhere in the world for me. It remains in my top 5 roller coasters, and the only thing I would slightly tweak to make it better personally for me is if the first launch was a little more sudden. That would probably contribute a bit. That would make it a bit more surprising and thrilling, but with phenomenal theming and thrills, VelociCoaster is certainly Intamin's greatest creation. But my personal favorite number 1 is Millennium Force at Cedar Point. This is a pick that I have talked about time after time. But Millennium Force is a ride that I enjoy more than pretty much any other. I love everything about it, from the first drop being the best of any roller coaster I've ever done. Yes, that means above things like Steel Vengeance, Maverick, X2, and so many others. The speed is held all the way through the ride. The forces are insane. I think they are not quite as tiring or painful as those of I-305, but I think they are much stronger in the sense that they are more sustained. I think the ride is technically in a way more intense than I-305, while also being more enjoyable. I love all of the airtime moments on this one. Yes, I mean 3 or 4, but they all work really well in my opinion. And the ride feels pretty long, even though it's not really the lengthiest of Giga coasters. I just think everything about this ride is fun. And fun is what I look for in a roller coaster more than anything else, and Millennium Force provides that even more than the sheer perfection of things like VelociCoaster. So overall, Millennium Force is my favorite roller coaster by Intamin, and I think it's one that definitely deserves a second chance if you've ever considered it Millennium Forceless. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below your favorite Intamin coasters, and also feel free to comment how shocked you are at certain rankings such as I-305 and El Toro. Subscribe to the channel for more content. I'll see you next time.